They said reality was unbreakable. The alien scholars, the ancient species who had watched the cosmos for 1 billion years, wrote laws of physics into stone and declared them eternal. Time flowed forward, space bent gently around gravity, and nothing moved faster than light. And then came us. Before we dive in, if you enjoy epic human stories like this one, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Now, back to the galaxy. Humans never asked permission. We built rockets before we tamed our own wars. We split atoms before we could guarantee the safety of our children. We reached beyond our solar system not because it was safe, but because it was there. So when the Galactic Council summoned humanity and declared that faster-than-light travel was forbidden, that the lattice of space-time could not under any condition be torn open, we did what humans have always done. We smiled, and we tried anyway. The aliens had theories, charts, and warnings of civilizations past. They spoke of empires erased for meddling with the deeper fabric, of ships that tried to outrun light and instead dissolved into silence. They told us reality was not a cage, but a living thing, and to tear at it was to invite collapse. To humanity, that sounded less like a warning and more like a challenge. The first test was simple. A station on the edge of the Kuiper Belt, crewed by the desperate, the dreamers, and the ones too stubborn to listen. The ship was called Daedalus, not for the myth of the wings, but for the act of reaching beyond the maze of what others had built. The device was small, a lattice of superconductors shaped into a halo, fed by antimatter harvested at insane cost. The goal wasn't even a jump, just a crack, a ripple, a peak beyond the horizon of the possible. When they turned it on, the universe screamed. The crew didn't hear it with their ears. They felt it in their bones, in their teeth, in the blood that hammered against the inside of their skulls. The stars outside the viewport stuttered, smeared, and split into a dozen impossible reflections. Space bent, then it snapped. The Daedalus disappeared. For 32 seconds, no sensor in the system could find it. To the aliens monitoring, it was proof of humanity's arrogance. Another species that had tried to break the unbreakable, another ship lost to the void. They began drafting their reports, ready to mourn us as another lesson carved into the ledger of cosmic law. And then, 32 seconds later, the Daedalus came back. Not destroyed, not twisted, not burned, whole, but changed. Its hull bore patterns no alloy could explain, scars that shimmered like oil on water, fractal geometries that stretched inward rather than outward. The crew was alive, though their eyes glowed faintly, pupils haloed by strange light. They could not describe what they had seen, only that they had been elsewhere, and they brought something back. When the Daedalus powered down, the ripple didn't stop. The snap they had forced into reality did not heal. Out in the void between Neptune and the dark hung a fracture, a crack in nothing. It was not a black hole. It was not a star. It was a wound, an edge where light bent sideways and sound carried where it should not. The aliens panicked. Across the galaxy, signals flared. The council convened in emergency. Old voices thundered warnings. The lattice was torn, and if left unchecked, the fracture would spread. A break in one place could mean collapse in all. Humanity, they declared, was not just reckless. Humanity was a contagion. But while they argued, humanity gathered. Because when humans looked at the fracture, they didn't see death. They saw a door. The crew of the Daedalus had returned with whispers they couldn't put into words. A sense of vastness, of possibility, of an architecture beyond the known. They described shadows that weren't shadows, light that wasn't light, shapes that bent around the edges of reason, and they swore they weren't alone. Funding poured in, not from governments, but from people, from dreamers and billionaires, from nations tired of being told no, from the stubborn pulse that ran through our species like iron through blood. If reality could be broken, we would not run. We would step through. The aliens threatened war. They stationed fleets around Sol, declaring humanity quarantined. But the fracture didn't listen. It widened on its own. Stars in nearby sectors flickered strangely, their light bending as if they too felt the tear. The galaxy looked at us with fear, and humanity, in return, looked back with wonder. The second test was larger. They called it Project Icarus, a cruel echo of the first myth. This time, it wasn't one ship. It was a fleet. 7 vessels, each equipped with their own lattice drives. Their mission wasn't to test the crack. It was to dive into it. When they entered, the universe trembled. When they came back, the universe changed. Because they did not return empty, the Icarus fleet emerged with technology that no alien could parse. Structures grown from impossible angles, engines that burned without fuel, data streams that seemed to flow backward and forward in time at once. Humanity had not just torn reality, they had reached into its skeleton and stolen blueprints. The Council declared us heretics, dangerous, an extinction threat. Armadas were mobilized, ready to burn Earth from existence before the contagion spread. But then something stopped them. The cracks spread without us. Across the galaxy, fractures appeared. At first, small, barely visible distortions at the edge of perception, but then larger gaping wounds in space that hummed with terrible beauty. Planets saw their skies ripple, stars blinked twice in the same night, and beings whispered that reality itself had begun to unravel, and only humans could stand near the cracks without dying. The aliens who approached fractured zones went mad. Their ships corroded in seconds, their crews dissolved into whispers of light. But human ships endured. Human bodies adapted. The crew of the Daedalus had been the first. They weren't unique. They were the prototype. We were all capable of it. Reality was rejecting the galaxy, but not us. For the first time in history, the aliens stopped calling us reckless. They called us necessary. The same voices that had demanded our destruction now begged for our help. The cracks could not be sealed, they said, but perhaps they could be guided, contained, harnessed. And humanity, with a smile as old as fire, said, "Of course, but on our terms." The galaxy that had once forbidden us now bent knee. Species that had ruled for 1 billion years placed their survival in the hands of upstart primates who had lived among the stars for less than 3 centuries. We became explorers not of stars, but of the lattice itself, diving into fractures, pulling knowledge from the raw machinery of existence. We found rules older than physics, codes written into the bedrock of reality, and we learned to edit them like lines of script. We didn't just break reality. We began to rewrite it, and with each word, each test, each impossible engine, we asked the same question that had haunted us since fire and wheel and rocket. What if we go further? The aliens trembled. They saw us as mad gods, children who had stolen the crown of creation and wore it with reckless joy. They whispered that humanity would end the universe itself. Maybe we would, but maybe we'd build something better. Because humans are not content with cages, not even the cage of reality. And so, the galaxy learned the truth. Reality wasn't unbreakable. It was only waiting for someone stubborn enough to test it. And when that someone turned out to be us, humanity, the rest of the universe had no choice but to follow. Because once humans broke reality, the only question left was, what would we build from the pieces?